1st of September, the US Air Force Space Command was founded, bringing two separate organisations under one roof to cover both operations in space itself, such as reconnaissance satellites, and missile warning systems like that at Fylingdales on the Yorkshire Moors. There was a brief frisson in the British press the next day when word came through that Tom Baker had died of a drug overdose, but it was soon clarified that this was a different actor by the same name. This Tom Baker had been a friend of Jim Morrison's and starred in Andy Warhol's sexploitation film I, A Man. On the 5th, the British papers were able to get their obituaries out for a much-loved Briton, as Sir Douglas Bader, the famous legless flying ace of the Second World War, passed away at 72 after having a heart attack on his way home from speaking at a dinner engagement. As the Grand Prix circus arrived in Monza for the last European race of the season, it was still a four-way battle for the driver's title between current leader Keke Rosberg, who'd become Finland's first ever Grand Prix winner 2 weeks earlier in Dijon, Alain Prost, whom he'd beaten to the line, and the McLaren duo of Niki Lauda and John Watson, still hanging in there despite having failed to score in the last 6 races. There were still 3 teams in the hunt for the Constructors' title too, with Ferrari leading and able to secure the title with a 1-2 finish in front of their home fans. Ferrari had filled car 28 with a surprise guest star, Mario Andretti, having already filled in once at Williams in Long Beach, now sat in the Scarlet car. He'd driven 6 races for the Scuderia back in 1971 and 72, and was one of a select group of drivers who'd won on their first outing for the team, so he was fondly remembered by the fans. Worries about Tombé's fitness had also been allayed by an impressive midweek test at Monza, which drew in almost as big a crowd as race day. The Ferrari faithful were also interested to see their next hero, René Arnoux, in action, and if his own team were reportedly not talking to him, the Tifosi were much more friendly, and he was seen having lunch in the Ferrari motorhome. Meanwhile, news came from the Renault garage that Alain Prost had signed up for 1983 and would be partnered by Eddie Cheever. Alfa Romeo debuted their V6 Turbo at Monza, a mere 2 years after its initial launch, albeit only for testing and demonstration. Rumours swirled about the other teams looking to hop on the turbo train too, with Ligier Renault, Tyrrell BMW and Williams Honda, all possible combinations spoken of. Other rumours said that Alfa Romeo were looking to replace a disappointing Bruno Giacomelli, possibly with Mauro Baldi, who'd had a decent year at Arrows so far. Tollman debuted their 1983 Challenger, the TG183, with a new colour scheme and an unusual nose-mounted air intake. There was just one example for Warwick, but Farby's TG181B had an experimental 6-speed gearbox fitted. Another team with a new colour scheme was Tyrrell, who had managed to secure a major sponsorship deal for the last couple of races, and now had British racing green cars adorned with the logos of Cologne brand denim. Monza is yet another in the string of fast circuits that suit the turbo cars well, and so it proved in qualifying, with the top 6 all turbos and all beating the previous lap record set by Clay Regazzoni in 1979. What was surprising was that Mario Andretti would be sitting on pole, showing he'd lost none of his touch in nearly a year out of F1. Piquet, Tombé, Patrese, Prost and Arnoux were the other 5, with Rosberg top of the Atmo cars in 7th, followed by the 2 Alphas and Lauda in 10th. Watson was 12th, the 2 McLarens split by Alboretto's freshly painted Tyrrell. Charrier had a great qualifying to put the Azella on 15th, prompting a scrutineer's investigation to make sure it was all legal, with the Lotus boys at disheartened 17th and 23rd. Mauro Baldi had the new Arrows for his home race, but could only manage 24th in it, with Salazar and Serra on the last row, and Manfred Winkelhock, an unaccustomed visitor to DNQ Town, alongside more regular residents Keegan, Bozell and Byrne. With prospects for a Ferrari win looking decent, there was an even bigger crowd than usual, estimated at some 200,000, at Monza on Sunday, all hoping to put one over on the Renaults and Brabhams that were the red car's main competition. When the lights went green, Andretti got too much wheel spin and was swamped, with Piquet leading into the first corner, followed by Tombé and Arnoux, while Prost took to the grass to avoid Andretti and dropped right back to 12th. Andretti lost 4th to Patrese on the first lap, while further back, Derek Daly had incurred suspension damage in the scramble off the line, which sent him off at the first chicane, tipping Henton into a spin, which collected Warwick in the shiny new Tollman. Piquet's engine was sounding sickly though, and he quickly dropped behind Tombé and Arnoux, but just as the Tifosi were rising to cheer a Ferrari across the line in P1, Arnoux got a slingshot past and took the lead. Tombé soon dropped behind Patrese too, and Tollman's awful weekend ended on lap 3 when Fabi pulled off. Patrese reeled in Arnoux a lap later but couldn't get past, and peeled into the pits on lap 7 with a broken clutch. So it was Arnoux leading Tombé by some 7 seconds, with Andretti third and fending off a charging Prost. The Frenchman got past the American and set off in pursuit of Tambay, while behind them title challengers Rosberg and Watson were 7th and 8th, and the Finn was attacking Giacomelli for the last point. As Piquet came in a lap after Patrese to retire with an engine failure, and Rosberg muscled his way past Giacomelli, the race already seemed to have settled into a bit of a parade, with large gaps between the top three and everyone else. The Giacomelli-Rosberg scrap was promoted a place when De Cesaris came in from 5th with a misfire. The team sent him back out with the new ignition coil, which solved the problem but lost him 2 laps in the process. Watson had now got ahead of Rosberg and was taking his turn to attack Giacomelli, whom he got past without too much ado and cleared off into the distance in a solid 5th place, while a presumably frustrated Rosberg continued being stuck behind Giacomelli's Alfa. One of the championship challengers fell by the wayside on lap 22 when Niki Lauda came in from 9th with brake issues and poor handling. Prost, meanwhile, had caught Tambay and was harrying his countryman, looking for a way past, and Rosberg had finally disposed of Giacomelli and was in pursuit of Watson, the other 3 title hopefuls all in the points. Not for long, though, as Rosberg's rear wing fell off somewhere on the back of the circuit. As Giacomelli came back past, he waved to attract Rosberg's attention, and the Finn tiptoed back round to the pits for a new one. The Williams team were ready, but fitting a new rear wing is no easy job, and Rosberg would be losing a lot of time while they fiddled with the car. As Rosberg went boiling out of the pits in 18th and 2 laps down, Prost was spluttering with the same fuel injection problem that had done for Arnoux last time out. The Ferrari faithful were suitably delirious with happiness as Tambay's position was safe and Andretti was promoted back to 3rd, with Watson now 4th. So now either John Watson or Keke Rosberg would be champion, and Keke could be crowned here in Monza if Watson had some sort of problem. While Rosberg probably wouldn't complain, it would be a bit of an anticlimax to the season if Rosberg were to trail in out of the points 2 laps down and still be crowned champion. It was by now a little over half distance as Giacomelli came in to retire his Alfa with a broken right side pod, which put Alvaretto up to 5th and Cheever up into 6th. And that was about it for excitement, unfortunately. Arnoux's Renault stayed in one piece all the way to the end, and next year's Ferrari man took the win at Monza, with the current Ferrari pair of Tambay and Andretti on the next 2 steps of the podium. To the Tifosi, this was essentially the next best thing to a Ferrari win, and they seemed almost as happy as Renault was. In the event, Watson was the only one of the title challengers to score points, in 4th, with Alboreto and Cheever picking up the minor positions. Mansell finished a very creditable 7th from 23rd on the grid, ahead of Rosberg, who was 8th 2 laps down. So both the championships would go down to the last race in Las Vegas, with Keke Rosberg needing just 1 point to seal the deal, while challenger John Watson needed to win the race and for Keke not to score. As in 1981, the bizarre venue in a casino car park would be the stage for the climax to an extraordinary season.